The Junkrat and Reaper changes that went onto the PTR yesterday are massive reworks to the way some of their core kit works, and today we're going to break down the ramifications. Now, I still can't get on the PTR, so continue to send me any troubleshooting tips that you have. I'll keep trying them out. But to help inform this video, I've reached out to some of my friends who've got big brain Overwatch game sense to help evaluate what's going on with these changes, as well as other community members. Everyone will be linked in the description, so be sure to go check out everything in full. Now, all of this deserves some in-depth looking at, but we're going to start off with Reaper, where Redditor Redstone Blaze posted up a 3-minute video showcasing a ton of really cool new Shadowstep flanks, because now you can abuse the fact that you can use Shadowstep in the air, which means you can jump off a platform, target where you want to go, and as long as you don't die falling off the edge of the map, and you're sort of above the threshold from where it triggers the death animation, you will then teleport safely to the other side. High risk ability, of course. If you mess this up, just like using a Hammond swing or whatever, if you go too low, like you're playing Limbo, well, you're gonna die. So some of these are more risky than they're worth, more than likely. And to the overall power level of this ability, the number one thing that we have to point out is that this kind of tactic doesn't really work at higher ranks, which is troublesome because Reaper was already good at lower ranks. He just wasn't good up against top tier, high elo play. And I don't think this does anything to help in that regard other than give him a cool toy to play with. Because here's the major problem with this new ability. The enemy can still see the animation of the Shadowstep. Those dark, shadowy swirls, the enemy still sees that. So they do know you're coming. They see it on the ground. They see it looming over in the distance. They just won't be able to accurately read the hitbox, which means it'll be harder to line up a perfect headshot afterwards, but you're still going to take damage and maybe even die while using the ability. So I'm not really sure what Blizzard's intentions are with this ability rework. If they go down this line further in trying to keep this ability rather than rework it into something else, they're probably going to have to remove all of the sound effects it gives and maybe make it purely invisible or tone down some of the particle effects of Reaper phasing into the darkness and the little swirls that emit from using the ability. But even then, is that the type of gameplay we want? So just like the lifesteal changes, I think this is the type of buff that makes him better where he already was good and doesn't succeed in helping out the GOATS meta. Up against something like a bunker comp, really static defensive playstyle, shadow stepping past that just like a teleporter can be pretty good now, I guess, kind of, sort of, especially if you start using some of these fancy tactics. But remember, you got to think about not just the ability to get over there, you're going there by yourself. So you get to one of these wacky locations on a map, and then what? You've got close range guns up against all sorts of things that instantly kill you. It's not like Tracer, who has constant blinks that will get across distances that are dangerous for her and actively go in and out. Because remember, a big percentage of the gaps that Reaper closes, other than the ones where he's like falling off a cliff and then teleports up to a ledge, Tracer already could pass. What I really want to see them do with Reaper is remove this relatively useless ability and instead give him some kind of tech that interacts with the GOATS meta, like a projectile, a nade, a smoke, poison gas bomb, I don't know, something that can interact with his actual weakness, which a lot of people think, well, it's the healing of GOATS comp that makes him bad. Not really, it's the shielding and damage denial abilities. As soon as he's not hitting hit points, he just doesn't do anything and is committed to a brawl he can't win. Reaper's actually one of the best characters to go up against healing because his damage is so outrageous that you can burst past healing. Sort of think of it as like a Widowmaker headshot doesn't care about healing, it just kills you before healing comes through, right? In the same way, Reaper, if you land chunky headshots, even some of the best healing in the game won't keep a target alive from Reaper's devastating damage. It's the shielding that really does him in. Give him some supercharge on his E that lets him deal more damage to barriers. That would be really annoying, but is the type of thing you need to deal with the power creep that Brigitte having an extra shield in a team comp is going to have. Overall, though, I'd like to see it be something that takes some skill to use, because the rest of the character is a bit too easy and is part of the problem with just directly buffing parts of his kit. We don't necessarily want one of the easiest DPS heroes in the game to be super meta, but maybe that's what they did with the new Junkrat. Okay, I kid. Now, these changes to the new Junkrat are a bit controversial. I've seen some posts that actually think it's a nerf, removing a certain type of playstyle. I'll get into that. But first, let's take a look at a clip from the Junkrat streamer Pro Like Crow, who tested out some of these changes side by side. His link is in the description, by the way. He's an OG Junkrat player. You're going to want to check him out. Now, to sum this up, although the projectile goes faster, it ends up going to the same place as it used to. They've tuned the arc for it to work that way. The massive change that you're going to notice is that after a single bounce, the nades explode, instead of continuing to travel and linger onto the ground. Now, there's some benefits and weaknesses to this change. The weakness is Junkrat players who spammed in a general direction or wanted to lay down their bombs in a very haphazard way are going to be hardcore punished by this playstyle, which is why I see a lot of posts saying that this is an overall nerf to the way they play Junkrat. However, I think for everyone who isn't playing Junkrat at the lower levels of play, absolutely hates that playstyle, and is going to be very glad to see Junkrat take a lot more skill now, which is why I'm confident in saying this is a very healthy change, because I know for a fact a lot of low-ranked tank players are having a hard time up against all the CC in the game now as well, but the lingering nade effect is just really annoying to try to play against until you get your movement skills to a very high level, because at higher ranks, the awareness and ability to dodge makes that playstyle not really a thing. You have to do much more with your Junkrat play to get him to work when the competition is a bit more fierce, and that's where this buff starts to look a lot better. So hopefully healthy for the lower levels of play, but also a big buff at the upper ends of play. This is my favorite kind of change, just like they did to Pharah. And why is it a buff? Well, I was talking to my friend Sam Mito about this. He's a sick streamer, the only one on YouTube, and his viewers have been growing recently. You want to check out some of his sick gameplay, link to the description. And the way he described it to me, I think makes a lot of sense. The new Junkrat nade is like the old scatter arrow, but you can aim it more accurately, which is a big buff to people who know how to aim it, rather than those who required for the lingering effect to hang around and expected their opponents to walk into the nades. That's gone. But instead, if you really know how to utilize that first bounce, well, now, it exploding afterwards is going to connect with damage in spots where maybe it would have rolled past before. So at the higher levels of play, when you see that nade coming in, maybe you could have sidestepped it a lot easier and then it lays on the ground, you walk past it. Now, just like the old scatter arrow used to, you can bounce it off the ground, bank shot it off a wall or something, and then have that explosion happen directly thereafter, right on the opponent's face. So this is going to be a bit of a buff to splash damage overall, in my opinion, to Junkrat, because the really skilled players are going to be able to manipulate that fuse timer to get the explosions to happen exactly where they want, more or less. Also reached out to my buddy PvP, who is a legendary ranked Junkrat player. He plays everything, though, to a high level, top 500 in every role. But my favorite hero that he plays is Junkrat, and this is what he said on the change. Overall, this change is a ridiculous buff. Being able to more reliably hit directs is going to be so impactful, and shorter explosion time will allow more value out of your lower arcing shots. If you want delayed explosions, you can raise your arc or bounce nades off walls to have them fall into desired locations. A huge problem before was nades on the ground were easily dodged, especially with Lucio being meta. So this sort of explains what I said earlier, where enemies would just run past them, right? And once you're outside of that elo of play where the lingering nades were a big problem, where they're just a non-entity, right? So this overall makes Junkrat a ton more reliable out of what you're going to get out of him. It's hard for me to quantify how this is going to play out in game, but I would say you can expect a big percentage increase in shots landed for Junkrat players, which leads to more overall damage and more output. Many of the shots that would have just sort of whiffed and sailed past and were easy to dodge, you now can guarantee an impact if you know what you're doing, rather than relying on the RNG of the enemies walking into the nades as they're kind of scattered in an area, which is a playstyle I know a lot of Junkrat players enjoyed, but probably wasn't the most fun to play against for the people that struggled to play up against it. So overall, healthy changes, at least for Junkrat. Reaper, I think they're going to have to take another look at and start to redevelop new ideas, because I would hate to see another situation where Reaper gets even better at the ranks he was already terrorizing. I don't really understand the point of that, but you'll have to let me know what your thoughts are on all of these changes in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to leave it a like. It really does help us out and lets us know that you're enjoying the content. And if you haven't already, please subscribe, and you're going to want to hit the bell icon so that you get notified when our videos go live. Link to the description is our Twitter, where we tweet out news, updates, and dank memes. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.